Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of Blitzcast, presented by the Majors TV. Each and every week, or whatever, we do this. It's been a while, but
well, football season is here.
Football season is finally here, so you got Adam and Adam here to do football shit with you. So let's get right into it. Today we're going to discuss article posted in ESPN by Mike Sando, one of their writers, earlier in the week, titled "NFL Execs and Coaches Why Colin Kaepernick is Still Unsigned." Gives 5 major points. We're going to hit them all and go right through them. So
sounds good.
Let's get right into it.
This is surprisingly, not surprisingly, but this is still probably the biggest thing going on right now in the NFL.
And at the same time, it's the preseason. There ain't much to talk about other than individual players getting hurt and people's fantasy dreams being dashed.
So I guess before we get into it, Dorf, is the NFL happy about something like this? Happy about the controversy surrounding Colin? Because the NFL is
normally the NFL is perfectly happy to embrace controversy. The only problem is in this case, they've stayed silent to their credit. If they were to come out publicly and have a stance, no matter what they choose, they lose. So, for that reason and that reason only, I don't think the NFL's happy about this one.
You're kind of seeing the coaches, though, come out and kind of form a stance with it, and supporting their players, because there are still players right now that are voicing their opinion. I mean, we saw the Cleveland Browns all take a knee.
Well, and then Jim Brown gave him a talking to.
Yeah, but he came out to the media, though, and said, hey, you know what, I'm going to support what they do. Pete Carroll did the same thing.
Mm-hmm. The Titans had 3 guys in the preseason.
Titans did it. Jack Del Rio, although I don't think that Marshawn Lynch was necessarily doing it because of the national anthem. He came out and said afterwards that he always sits down during the...
he always has and always will.
In which Marshawn Lynch is going to be a special case because it's Marshawn Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah. He may not even know that there's a national anthem going on before the game, so...
He's in Marshawn Lynch land.
Yep.
So, all right. So you're going to take it? I'm going to take us through this. So,
yes.
Takeaway number 1. Colin, so this is, once again, ESPN article earlier this week by Mike Sando.
And what's the title?
I gave him the title.
Oh, you did?
NFL execs and coaches on why Colin Kaepernick remains unsigned.
I wasn't listening then.
Yeah, way to not, jerk. All right, Colin Kaepernick would be on our NFL roster right now if he was a similarly talented player at a different position.
Okay.
To summarize the point about this, with a quote. Another guy at another position exercises the same right. He probably doesn't get the same feedback as the guy who's supposed to be an All-American guy at quarterback, a personnel director said. I don't think you should have kept him from getting a job or coming in and competing. He made his statement. He was recognized for making that statement, and some people jumped on board with him, and others were against his stance. He made his point, but now you have to move on to the next thing. That's not the way it's worked out so far. It's not really about his ability, another exec said. It's about the risk of what happens to you, the team concept when you sign a guy, a quarterback, who has put his personal agenda ahead of what they are all charged to do, which is put the team first. As a team builder, this is from an NFL executive's perspective, I cannot risk that happening again, especially for a borderline starter who needs an offense catered to his style of play.
Okay. I'm going to wait on what I have to say because there's other points that he makes that kind of go back and discredit some of these earlier claims that are mentioned right here.
At the same time, those two statements I read there are quotes from different NFL people.
I understand. However, I'm still not buying the fact that there isn't a place for a guy like Colin Kaepernick right here and now on an NFL roster when the right here and now you're looking for roster fillers. You're looking at guys who can contribute to your team. We mentioned it during Motor City Uncut tonight that the NFL roster is so big that every team, especially in preseason, has room for a guy that can be a project guy. I'm not saying Colin Kaepernick is necessarily
he's too far into his career to be a project. He could be a.
I'm not necessarily saying he's a project guy, but he's a guy that
at least should be in somebody's camp.
Exactly.
Doesn't necessarily need to make the final roster, but he should be in somebody's camp.
Exactly. And that's why, you know, when you're dealing with these tiers and everything, I think it's perfectly fair to say, a lot of players have come out and said it, that Colin Kaepernick is getting blackballed because there's other guys, other quarterbacks getting jobs in this league ahead of him. Now, should Jay Cutler have a job before Colin Kaepernick? Yeah, probably. I think Jay Cutler is probably still
more suited to being successful at the NFL level than Colin Kaepernick right now.
However, I will save some other further comment on Jay Cutler as we
don't blow your entire load here in point one
as we progress on this. But you look at other guys, Blake Bortles, Chad Henne is still on a team.
Well, I mean, he's kind of precluded from going back to San Francisco, but that's not a great quarterback situation there either.
Exactly. Who else is there? Ryan Fitzpatrick is in the league still. I mean, is Ryan Fitzpatrick better?
He's backing up Marcus Mariota.
But is he... Fair enough, but he still has a job.
Correct.
So that's all I have to say about this particular point.
Okay, so takeaway number 2. Some of the leagues question whether Kaepernick is serious about continuing his NFL career. This question isn't new. This is kind of something that came about in his first protest of the anthem. An offensive... So, Sando references an article he does every year, the quarterback tiers survey. So he interviews people around the league and kind of classifies quarterbacks into, I believe, 4 or 5 different tiers: elite, above average, below average, fringe, and, you know, backup.
Sure.
When asked about Kaepernick, he made, you know, some people thought he had lost his desire to play football and he was becoming increasingly distant with his team and the media. And that criticism of him has not changed for the 2017 QB tier survey he did. Quote, this is from another person I'll play. Everyone else is worried about him working and never hear him talk about how much he wants to work. That hits a chord. People want to hear, I want to work in this league. I want to work for you. I want to do this more than anything. Kind of like what Tim Tebow, for example, has done. I'd rather be, you know, he'd rather be on the outside switching sports relegated to a third team than being relegated to being a third team player getting 20% of the reps. That was about Tebow. So, you know, this criticism is legitimate. You know, he's not at least laying out the usual platitudes of a guy trying to get a job back in this league. Oh, I can't wait to come into work. I can't wait to come in and compete for that starting job and help us win games. Yada yada. You haven't heard that out of him. You know, it's all bullshit anyway. But at the same time, if you're trying to earn your way back into this league, is it necessarily wrong for people who are going to invest money and essentially, because he's such a polarizing figure, risk losing a fan base or a team and a locker room over this guy? Don't you really wish that he would at least be saying the right things to try and earn his way back into the league?
One, you're never going to lose an NFL fan base. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
I agree with you on this. But if from an owner's perspective and a risk management thing, for a guy who is kind of on the fringes of being able to lead an NFL franchise, is it worth the risk?
Okay.
Of potentially alienating some fans.
Pete Carroll point, as far as that fringe guy, will discredit this, but we'll save that until we get to the Pete Carroll point here. Again, NFL teams are not losing fan bases. The league is too strong. Their financial structure is too strong. Revenue sharing is too strong for
here's the
hold on for owners really to be concerned about that. Once again, NFL contracts very, very much favor ownership. So the teams are trying to play victim here when it comes to Colin Kaepernick, and that's simply not the case. That's a load of bullshit, because everybody knows that all the risk is on the player's side rather than it being on
the team.
Yes, rather than the team. Exactly. So everything that this entire take, it's entirely bullshit.
Here,
go ahead.
Hear me out here. Ratings are down. That is an undeniable fact.
True.
If you believe what is to be heard by essentially crowd, surveying companies who have been hired by the NFL to try and source why, Colin Kaepernick is a part of why ratings are down.
However,
He is not the majority of the reason ratings are down. That is cord cutting. People aren't, they just don't have TV anymore. They just don't have live TV anymore, and that's just the decision they've made. That is the majority of it.
So
Colin Kaepernick is a part, likely insignificant, but is a part of why some people do not watch football on Sunday.
But you know what? It's almost going to be a losing battle for them in that sense, because there's now other players that are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other players that are doing it. We saw the Cleveland.
How many of them play quarterback?
See, again, that doesn't matter because Colin Kaepernick. No, it doesn't, because Colin Kaepernick is not going to be a starter in this league.
Mm-hmm.
He's not. He's going to be sitting on the sidelines. He's going to be holding the clipboard. That's not going to happen with him. Look, if this was Tom Brady, if this was Aaron Rodgers, if this was Drew Brees, if this was Phil Rivers doing this, then yes, there may be something behind that point. However, Colin Kaepernick is going to sit on the bench, and he's not going to do anything unless there's an emergency that comes up.
For that point, what do NFL teams want out of their backup quarterbacks? I'm going to bring this point up as I constantly, you hear me across this network. Backup quarterbacks are a second quarterback coach that will happen to suit up and come into a game. Mm-hmm. If shit hits the fan,
mm-hmm.
somebody gets hurt. You have about no chance of winning a game over the backup quarterback in the game, regardless. So backup quarterbacks are most valued for what they bring to the table on the mental side of things, especially when it comes to game prep. If the criticism about him not wanting the desire to play and just not wanting to do the little things right, why does that provide value as a backup quarterback for me? Now, I'm not even talking the potential distraction angle. If he is unwilling to do essentially the shit work during the week to help team prep for their opponent each and every week, in the film room, in the meeting room, on the practice field, that's what the role of a backup quarterback is. If that's all, if you're going to admit that's all that he's going to be good for this season, why am I bringing him in?
You know what? You've got to put that theory to the test, though.
Okay.
I think Colin Kaepernick was in an all-around bad situation in San Francisco.
Yep.
I think it's genuinely.
It was a team devoid of talent.
Yes, I think. Look, and this is a team that let
with a boob of a head coach.
This is a team that
was a boob.
Yes, and this is a team that let Jim Harbaugh walk. Mm-hmm. Jim Harbaugh is one of the best football head coaches
you'll find
across the board, whether it's in college, whether it's in pro. What Colin Kaepernick did in San Francisco, like I said, has to be tested again on another team.
Okay.
I'm not willing to believe wholeheartedly that the guy doesn't want to work. Maybe that is the case. And you know what? If that's the case, then Colin Kaepernick doesn't deserve a job. However, that theory needs to be put to the test. And was it the first takeaway from this that coaches are looking for guys that are going to help them win? Was that the first take? Was that part of the first take?
Part of the first take?
Yeah. Or am I jumping ahead?
No, the first take was similarly talented player, different position for the other roster.
Okay, so I'm jumping.
Second take was he would be on a. Second take was if he was serious about his continuing his career.
Okay, I mean, I may be
jumping ahead.
I may be jumping ahead, but anyways, go ahead with your point.
Ultimately, in any sort of public field, perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
If the perception, whether publicly or privately within the league, is this guy does not want to work. He's not enthusiastic about the job. And he's already considered, and there's no doubt about it, he's a fringe talent.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that needs a offense tailored to him. He's not willing to come in and give that, 1,000%.
What's the definition of a fringe talent?
As defined by, you'd have to get into the Sando. Sando does his QB tier survey, so a guy that is a below average starter or a backup type.
Okay.
And that's where Kaepernick has actually checked in the last 2 years. So, by using that definition of fringe talent, it's essentially the 25th to 35th ranked quarterback in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that teams are looking to upgrade in future off seasons.
But again, though, I go back to the roster size, especially during preseason. I go back to the way...
I won't fight you on the fact that he should be in somebody's camp. Whether he makes somebody's team in the end
No, I'm taking this by baby steps, Dorf.
Okay.
I'm not looking ahead to whether or not he should be on a 53-man roster once week 1 comes around. I'm not there yet.
Sure.
The guy hasn't even gotten a chance yet. The guy hasn't gotten a chance in training camp with the salary structure, with how many available roster spots there are right now. And when players around the league are talking about being blackballed, or Colin Kaepernick is being blackballed, yeah, he is most certainly being blackballed. So, go ahead.
Let's do our next point here.
Okay.
What Pete Carroll said sounded weird, but there's something to it. So, Pete Carroll said the Seahawks passed on signing Colin Kaepernick back up in part because Kaepernick is better suited as a starter, but he wouldn't want a starting caliber quarterback in a backup role. The answer is not always yes when it comes to quarterbacks. For example, the Dolphins were content with going with Matt Moore as their number 2 quarterback as a supportive mentor and sounding board for Ryan Tannehill, kind of that QB coach that wears a jersey on Sunday, as I kind of described. But did not hesitate to sign Jay Cutler for a starting position when Tannehill went down for the year. Instead of, kind of to that point, the same thing happened when Teddy Bridgewater got hurt. The Vikings immediately went out and traded for Sam Bradford.
Even though they had Sean Hill.
Because they viewed Sean Hill as that mentor, second QB coach type deal. Second, to continue the point, second quarterbacks are not necessarily the 33rd versus 64th ranked quarterbacks in the world. In other words, they're either frequently developmental draft picks, usually carried as a third quarterback or practice squad player, or veteran backups who are the QB coach type. As far as Colin Kaepernick goes, as Pete Carroll said, he's more of a starting type. And if he's not going to, he's too old to be considered the developmental phase, and you can't ditch him on a practice squad. He's got too many years of experience. And if he's not going to provide that second sort of QB coach role, then he doesn't have a role on most teams. The only place that he really could immediately go in and kind of be the best man on campus is the place he just burned all the bridges with. It'd be San Francisco.
Look, I think the problem that we have here with all of this too is guys are jumping ahead. The guys are jumping ahead and making it seem like, and perhaps teams are doing this too. I don't know. I prefer to think that teams are actually blackballing the guy. But in this sense right now with these takeaways, I really do think that the ESPN writer is jumping ahead.
The thing is though, if you remember this piece, this is all just quotes.
I know.
This is all quotes from this guy's opinion.
I will say the meat of this is jumping ahead though, whether it's his opinion or what. Personally, the quotes that are being taken from this, they're talking out of their ass. They're absolutely talking out of their ass because they're just continuing to look for excuse
to not
sign Colin Kaepernick. But Pete Carroll though does make an interesting point that goes and quite frankly proves the point of many other guys or many other standpoints around the league. And it's one of those weird points because I'm going to go off a little bit on this one, but what he's saying isn't out of the realm of well, it's not crazy to think. That kind of stuff happens all the time. Take for instance teachers. Teachers are oftentimes not given a job because they have too much experience. For instance, if you're
too expensive for an entry-level job.
Exactly. So if you have your master's and you're going to try and get your first job, you're more than likely going to have a hard time finding one because you're going to be too expensive for a lot of school districts.
For somebody who's never done anything.
Yes. So I can kind of see, the thinking that Pete Carroll is having here. However, under the notion that in training camp, they're just looking for guys to make the team better, that kind of defeats the purpose of not going out and signing a guy like Colin Kaepernick and finding out, okay, yes, Colin Kaepernick is
especially because you can get him on a below market value, one guaranteed deal where guess what, the only thing you're out is his per diem if you cut him at the end of camp.
Exactly. Okay. So there's very little risk. there's somewhat high reward with Colin Kaepernick. And again, I
remember, the guy started a Super Bowl.
The guy started a Super Bowl. He helped the team get to the Super Bowl.
It wasn't his rookie season, but his first time in a starting role.
Yeah. Now, given Colin Kaepernick, I mean, take all the controversy aside, all of it aside. Say Colin Kaepernick right now is just a guy looking for a job. He stood for all the national anthems. He doesn't have a big fro. He doesn't wear Fidel Castro shirts to press conferences.
Or pig socks to practice.
Say none of that was the case here.
That wasn't Castro. Was it a Castro shirt?
I think it might have.
Was it what's his name? Agricultural revolutionary.
Revolutionary. I can't remember. Yeah, I know. I should know this.
We should know that too. Yeah. I should know that too.
I want to say Hugo Chavez, but that definitely wasn't one.
Whatever. Move on.
Yeah. Anyways, if this was just a guy looking for a job, it still needs to be the right system. And he mentions it here in this article that the biggest problem is, as far as Colin Kaepernick goes, from an on-the-field standpoint, where teams trying to make him a pocket passer. And
that's the next takeaway. Takeaway number 4: skill set is a factor. Before you continue that point, let me read the quote.
Yes.
Many voters in.
Sorry, I forgot how many takeaways.
It's fine. And Sando's QB tier survey views Colin Kaepernick as a tier 3 player, so below average starter, in a system that is tailored for him specifically, or a tier 4 or 5 player in a system that is not.
Yes.
Also, quote, I like the arm strength and I like the athleticism, but the worst thing that happened to him is when people tried to make him a pocket passer. He is much better when he can waggle or boot and do some of those other things. That was a personnel director.
And you see, Dorf, this is the most believable takeaway out of the entire piece.
It's something that it's not necessarily, it's verifiably, observably, can be verified by observation.
Absolutely.
He had his best success when running a college-style system.
And it's not based on theory. It's not based on hearsay and conjecture. It's not based on any of that.
It's based on data.
It's based on data, and it's based on what these NFL executives, NFL personnel care about the most. What they can do on the field and wins. Exactly. So, yes, this is the most believable takeaway in terms of why Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job, or why...
Quite honestly, this is... Ultimately, I understand why it was put at number 4 in this article, because you've got people hooked with the shit at the top and you have meat at the bottom. That's just called good. Well, good. It's not necessarily journalism because this isn't reporting. It's called good argument.
Well, it is reporting. He's reporting the quote.
Sure,
but
good journalism. That's called doing your job well.
Yes.
Ultimately, the NFL is about wins and losses.
Yes.
If you're not going to you can't tailor your roster for him at this point anymore, because those decisions are that ship has sailed for this upcoming season. You can't tailor your roster for him, so he's a fringe type player, that tier 4 or 5. Let's discuss. Why take the political risk signing this guy as discussed above? Potential lock, There is, but you can't. Yes, it's unlikely that fans would be affected because people are junkies. And it's unlikely that you will lose your locker room. But why risk it for a guy who, if everything goes well for your season, won't play it down?
Because you're not doing this. I mean, how much are you really risking in the preseason and in training camp?
You're not. I don't disagree with you about bringing him in for the preseason.
But it's
serious.
But it's a win-win situation, because if you bring him in and it ends up working, then you
do have a guy that's played in the Super Bowl.
Then you've got a guy that's played in the Super Bowl. You've got a guy that's played in a winning system. You've got a guy that
won games.
Yeah, that has won games at the NFL level. That's hard to come by, especially with a backup quarterback who's looking for a job. Every other backup quarterback,
by the way, is on the right side of 30.
Yes. Every other backup quarterback in the league seems like they've been bouncing around shit programs and they have no idea what winning smells
actually looks like.
Yes, looks, tastes, smells like.
Scott Tolzien still has a job in this league.
Exactly. So, again, there's...
Ryan Fitzpatrick still has a job in this league.
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, I think that this is the best takeaway out of the entire thing, out of the entire write-up. However, there is still an element of bullshit to it. with these quotes and everything. Considering Dorf, where we are at this point right now in the NFL season.
Quite honestly, in order for I will give you that there was no reason to have him in training camp, but at this point, it is too late. There's no reason to bring him at this point. You've got, let's see, you have a 53-man roster. You've got probably 48 decisions made, and you're trying to figure out the last 5. Quarterback is not going to be in that last 5. That ship has sailed. Now, is he on several teams, hot? I forget what they call them, hot lists or whatever. They're short lists of if shit hits the fan during the season. This is the list of 5 guys we call at each position if we need a body. Is he on somebody's list? Sure, but is he at this point, addable before an emergency happens? Probably not.
I see your point, Dorf. Mm-hmm. I see that point being made. I will go ahead and raise you, though.
Uh-oh.
This is a guy that hasn't even been brought in for a workout.
Touché.
A workout. So, yes, you do make a good point. It is probably too late, but you're never too late to deal with injuries, lack of productivity, so on and so forth. This is a guy that hasn't even been brought in for a workout.
And no, you're correct. He hasn't been brought in for a workout.
Are you going to raise me here?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to kind of provide context on why that may be.
Oh, so you are going to raise me?
No, I'm just going to bring up a little bit of stats about his 2016 season.
Man, you're not a fun poker player, but go ahead.
Yes.
You going to try to trump me? Is that a good euchre term here?
Sure.
Okay. I don't even know how to play. I don't even know how to play euchre. But
it's pretty simple.
No, it's not. I hate euchre.
And nobody out there knows what it is because it's such a Midwestern game.
Unless Bears fans or Lions fans or Cleveland fans are watching.
Colts fans too.
Colts fans. So continue.
If you look at the guys who started multiple games in the NFL last year, Colin Kaepernick was 28th in QBR. He was 29th in quarterback rating. Now, did have a very nice touchdown-to-interception ratio. His average yards per attempt were at the bottom of the league. His overall efficiency, yards gained efficiency was low. And if you actually look at it, most of his yards were in garbage time. So he was a garbage time hero who didn't turn the ball over. Granted, he did not turn the ball over, but was at the bottom part of the league in efficiency metrics.
But as that one NFL executive said, though, Dorf, what was one of the biggest mistakes when it came to Colin Kaepernick?
In what regard?
Trying to turn him into a pocket passer.
Sure. But bring that all back around. He's a tier 3 guy in a system tailored for him. He's a 4 or 5 in somebody else's system.
Yeah,
and if you're not tailoring your system, you're not tailoring your system for anybody at this point.
Hey,
your roster's set.
Like I said at the top of the show, I'm taking baby steps right now.
Okay.
I am talking right now just simply training camp, preseason workout. I'm not talking about signing him to a deal and he's going to be carrying the clipboard for the Indianapolis Colts come week 1 of the NFC. Yeah.
So the last takeaway is the situation is simple and complicated all at once. And as I think we've kind of laid out here, that it's abundantly true.
Yeah, this is an incredibly complicated situation right now.
Hey, we can talk about this for another year.
Yeah, quite frankly, it's I would have a newfound respect for the NFL if they just came out and were somewhat honest about this, which I don't think they're entirely doing.
And at the same time, from an NFL's perspective, I think you have nothing to gain, everything but to lose by taking a public stance about it.
Probably.
There's no reason to. You aren't set to gain anything by doing that.
But everybody knows what they're thinking about. Everybody knows the thinking behind it.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, then they can't necessarily stick it to you if you keep your mouth shut.
And it's a league too where when they try to take the moral high ground on something, or they think they're taking the moral high ground on something,
they're so bad at it.
Exactly. You laugh. Just like what Dorf did, you laugh because this is the same. Because this is the same league that gives a guy like Greg Hardy a second chance, Michael Vick a second chance, Adrian Peterson
killed a guy while drunk driving.
Exactly. All those guys got second chances. Colin Kaepernick, because he doesn't want to stand for a national anthem, and it's not like he's not standing because he has some illegitimate reason. Colin Kaepernick has some very legitimate reasons do not stand for the national anthem. Now, whether or not you think that you agree with that or not, that's entirely up to you. But he still has.
It's not entirely out of left. I don't necessarily agree with his line of reasoning or how he arrives at his conclusion. But at the same time, if you give credibility to his argument, as instead of the logical argumentation term is instead of straw manning his argument, you steel man his argument and take it at its strongest terms.
Sure,
he's not wrong.
No, he's not. I think the part where I would go a different direction is I don't want to make a generalization when it comes to the national anthem. That's me. That's not Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick, like I said, is entirely entitled to, stage a protest however he feels necessary. And that's relatively speaking, or, reasonably thinking.
And so I got one last thing to wrap it up.
Reasonably speaking, excuse me,
yeah,
go ahead.
One last thing before we wrap this up tonight. If Colin Kaepernick does not play a down this year, does not see time on anybody's roster, will somebody sign him this upcoming offseason in sort of a try and see what we have, find out here, kind of have him in the entire offseason program and potentially kind of get to where you were to figure out what you have and maybe decide that maybe we can tailor our roster to fit this guy's skill set.
It's possible,
Handicap. Not necessarily handicap it. Percent chance it happens.
No, I hate the percent chance.
I love it.
Guesses.
You've been around me long enough. You know I love that.
I will say 70%.
That he gets a chance if he doesn't see time this year? Okay. I'm going to go 20. Because quite honestly, NFL quarterbacks of any stripe have a very, very small chance of making it back in the league if they set out a year. So,
I am thinking about that, Dorf. At the same time, time heals all wounds. That old cliche statement. So
it comes down, because you kind of think...
And again, I don't want to jump ahead.
To generalize kind of you honestly think most of the reason he's not signed now is political instead of field?
Absolutely.
I think it's field instead of political.
I think it's 100% political, and there's been plenty.
I would say it's about 80% field and 20% political.
I say it's 99% political, 1% field.
Okay. We disagree. Anything else?
That's going to be it.
All right, that's going to wrap up this episode of Blitzcast. So if you like what you saw here, do support us here on social media. That is at The Majors TV on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
We don't have a Majors TV for Facebook.
Oh, we don't?
No.
We should get on that.
Too many to manage.
You already have like 7,000 Facebook pages.
Yeah, we have it.
It's another one. Or, you know what? Hit us up over at Patreon, patreon.com/themajors. Give us your support there, financial support there to help keep things going here at the network. So for Adam, I'm Dorf. We'll see y'all next time.